Imagine sitting in a sterile, fluorescent-lit government archive.
Or a cinder block basement at the Pentagon.
Right, exactly. You are flipping through this highly classified 42-page military document from 1983.
Typewritten. Heavy redactions.
It's a report by a U.S. Army lieutenant commander named Wayne McDonnell, and it is detailing a CIA investigation into something called the Gateway Process.
A literal military manual on how to transcend space and time.
You are reading about the human mind traveling to alternate dimensions. You get to the very bottom of page 24, and the text reads, "And the eternal thought or concept of self, which results from this self-consciousness, serves the..." And then
Mythic.
nothing. It just cuts off mid-thought.
For almost 40 years, the crucial 25th page of this declassified document was just missing. No conclusion. Just the most mind-bending cliffhanger sitting in a military intelligence file.
Welcome to Fleshology. Today, we are taking a deep dive into one of the most insane intersections of military intelligence, quantum physics, and human consciousness.
We have a seriously wild stack of sources to rip through today. We've got that actual declassified 1983 CIA report, but we are dragging it into the bleeding edge with a brand new, highly technical 2026 physics paper on oscillatory dynamics by John Surmont.
And to make sure we ground all this hardcore theory, we are pulling personal accounts from the trenches. An article from AE Magazine, raw experiences from the massive Our Gateway Tapes Reddit community, and some really heavy insights from YouTube explorations, like the Y files and an Aaron Doty interview.
Our mission today is to completely dissect the Monroe Institute's Gateway process. We are going to expose the actual biological mechanics of how it works through something called Hemi-Sync.
We're going to tear into the physics of the holographic universe.
And we are going to figure out what actually happens when the human mind tries to literally click out of physical reality.
It is so easy to look at this and just think, oh, this is pure science fiction. The idea of the CIA studying astral projection sounds like a bad movie plot.
But they didn't want mystical bullshit. They applied a rigorous, brutal physical framework to it. The military's goal wasn't just to trip out. It was to understand how human consciousness acts as a transductive interface with the universe itself.
Okay, hold on. A transductive interface. Let's back up. My first question when I opened the stack was just, why in the hell was the CIA looking at this in 1983?
Context is everything. It's the early 80s, the Cold War is absolutely raging, and the U.S. military is genuinely terrified that Soviet parapsychologists are making leaps in remote viewing.
Which is basically psychic spying, right?
Exactly. Think about it. If the Soviets could train a guy in Moscow to just close his eyes and read a classified document sitting on a desk in the Pentagon, that is a catastrophic national security threat.
Game over.
Right. So they task Lieutenant Commander McDonnell with figuring out if this gateway process is scientifically valid. And more importantly, can the Army weaponize it?
They wanted to build psychic spies.
You bet they did. And McDonnell didn't go to gurus. He went to Itzhak Bentov, who was this highly respected biomedical engineer, to map out the physical mechanics of the brain. Bentov's models are the entire foundation of this report.
Okay, break that down. How did Bentov view the brain?
He explained that our brain functions as a deeply divided system. Think of your left hemisphere as this highly analytical, linear thinking bouncer at a grimy nightclub. It is the ultimate gatekeeper.
It just screens everything.
Right. Its entire job is to process incoming stimuli, categorize it, and decide what is real, what's logical, and what is safe.
It's the monkey mind that just never shuts the fuck up.
Precisely. Now, the right hemisphere is the holistic, creative, pattern-oriented receiver. It doesn't judge, it just accepts information without question.
But the bouncer won't let it do its job.
Exactly. The left brain screening process is so aggressive, so loud, that it rarely lets the right brain take the wheel.
There's this brilliant quote in the CIA report that just nails this. McDonnell quotes the physicist Niels Bohr. Bohr is talking to his son, who is complaining about how obtuse physics is, and Bohr just looks at him and says, "You are not thinking. You are merely being logical."
That is a perfect, chilling summation of the left brain. If you only use logic, you miss the actual reality of the universe.
Right.
So the first massive hurdle in the gateway process is assassinating that bouncer. You have to bypass the logical gatekeeper.
Right, but people do that all the time. What about hypnosis? Or just normal meditation? Why was the CIA so obsessed with this specific gateway method?
McDonnell tears into the differences in the report. Hypnosis works by essentially boring the left brain to death. You stare at a swinging pendulum, there is no new stimulus, and the left brain just clocks out of sheer boredom.
Leaving the right brain wide open.
Exactly. And then you have transcendental meditation, or TM.
I've heard of that. How does that work in this framework?
According to the CIA report, TM draws energy up the spinal cord to create acoustical standing waves in the fluid-filled ventricles of the brain. That physically stimulates the right hemisphere directly.
Whoa.
But Gateway doesn't use boredom. And it doesn't use traditional meditation. It uses a brute force audio technology called Hemi-Sync.
Which brings us to a really fascinating guy, Bob Monroe. Monroe wasn't a mystic. He was a radio broadcasting executive in the 1950s.
What total soup?
Yeah. He started experimenting with sleep learning, basically blasting specific sound frequencies to see how they messed with the human mind. And he accidentally started inducing out-of-body experiences.
He actually coined the term out-of-body experience.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And what Monroe figured out was that he could reliably trigger these experiences using a technique based on binaural beats. It relies on a raw neurological hack called the frequency following response.
Okay, I read the breakdown of binaural beats in the stack, and I need to make sure I'm wrapping my head around this. Say I put on stereo headphones. In my right ear, a tone is played at exactly 100 hertz. But in my left ear, a slightly different tone is played at 104 hertz. The brain hears these two different frequencies and freaks out. It gets confused.
Yeah.
So to reconcile the difference, my brain literally generates its own internal frequency of 4 hertz, the exact mathematical difference between the two tones.
You nailed it. And here is why that is so fucking profound. 4 hertz happens to be the frequency of theta brainwaves.
Which is deep sleep.
Deep sleep and profound relaxation. Through this frequency following response, the Hemi-Sync audio violently forces the left and right hemispheres of the brain to synchronize. They start firing at the exact same amplitude and frequency. The bouncer and the receiver are suddenly speaking the exact same language.
Okay, so the audio tricks the brain into syncing up. I get that. But the CIA report claims it's not just the brain. It says it changes your entire physical body. How does listening to a cassette tape do that?
This is where Bentov's biomedical models get truly terrifying. He explains that the body acts as an antenna. Normally, your heart is pumping blood forcefully through your aorta. That brutal pumping creates a physical echo, a wave that travels up and down your body about 7 times a second.
Wait, is that why sometimes if you're lying perfectly still in bed, you can actually feel your pulse echoing in your neck?
Yes. Bentov calls that the bifurcation echo. Your body is constantly shaking from these micro tremors from your own heartbeat.
Okay.
But when you achieve that incredibly deep sleep-like state from the Hemi-Sync tapes, the physical violence of your heartbeat lessens. That echo drops off. The body's micromotions smooth out into a perfect rhythmic sine wave.
And when that happens?
The entire human body begins to vibrate at roughly 7 to 7.5 hertz.
Which is the exact frequency of the Earth's natural electrostatic field.
Precisely. The human body effectively enters into a state of physical resonance with the entire planet. Because of this resonance, the wavelength of the human energy field stretches out to about 40,000 kilometers.
Which perfectly matches the perimeter of the Earth.
You become a highly tuned receiver.
Hold on. You are telling me that by listening to some static on a vintage tape, my physical body literally becomes a 40,000 kilometer radio antenna.
You are no longer fighting the natural frequencies of your environment. You are mathematically matching them.
Okay, assuming my body is now a planetary antenna, what exactly am I tuning into? Why does military intelligence care about my vibes?
To understand what you are tuning into, we have to rip into the holographic universe. The report leans heavily on physicists like David Bohm and Carl Pribram. They argue that solid matter, as you and I interact with it right now, simply does not exist.
Right, the report says the universe isn't a collection of objects, it's just this giant, impossibly complex system of interacting energy fields.
It's a massive oscillating grid. Think of an actual hologram. To make one, you split a laser beam. Half bounces off an object, the other half bypasses it, and when they crash into each other on a photographic plate, they create an interference pattern.
And when you shine light through that pattern, a 3D image pops out.
Exactly. Bohm and Pribram argue the entire universe works this way. Atomic structure is just oscillating energy grids surrounded by other oscillating grids. It is a hologram.
Yeah.
And because humans possess self-consciousness, our minds are essentially smaller holograms that can tune into the universal one.
So the gateway process is basically a Black Ops user manual for how to operate your own holographic consciousness.
It's the ultimate hack.
All right, let's make this raw and practical for the listener. Let's walk through what actually happens when you sit down in your basement and put on these Monroe Institute tapes. It starts with preparation. Bob Monroe's voice guides you to visualize an energy conversion box.
Right.
You mentally take all your shit, your anxieties, your bills, your stress, you shove them in this heavy mental box, slam the lid shut, and walk away.
It's a psychological framing device.
Yeah.
You are locking the bouncer in a closet.
Honestly, given my daily anxieties, I'd need a mental shipping container, not a box, but I get it. Next, you do some resonant humming along with the tape, and you state the gateway affirmation. I am more than my physical body.
You are setting a conscious intention before the frequencies hijack your brain. Once they kick in, you move through what the Institute calls focus levels. The first major hit is Focus 10.
Body asleep, mind awake.
Exactly.
We have this wild account in our stack from an author at ELE magazine. She tried the tapes. She described lying there, listening to Monroe's, and I love this, quote, old-timey granddad voice.
It's very vintage.
She said she felt profoundly relaxed, like
Yeah.
completely weightless, floating, but her mind was razor sharp.
That is classic Focus 10. The body is effectively anesthetized, but the consciousness is highly active. From there, it pushes you deeper. Focus 12 is expanded awareness, where your perception stretches beyond the physical meat suit. Then you hit Focus 15.
The no-time state.
Yeah.
This is where things get genuinely trippy. Time just dissolves. Past, present, and future merge into a single moment.
Because time in physics is just a measurement of change, is energy in motion. If you alter the frequency of your consciousness enough, you can step completely outside that measurement.
And that leads to Focus 21 and eventually beyond, which is the total transcendence of physical reality.
Which brings us to the most dangerous part of the CIA report, the click-out phase.
How does human consciousness actually just leave the physical dimension? Where does it go?
This relies on hardcore quantum mechanics, specifically the Planck distance. To put it simply, the Planck distance is 1.6 times 10 to the negative 35th power meters.
Which is unimaginably small.
It's the absolute smallest pixel of the universe. In physics, below this distance, the concepts of space and time completely break down. They cease to exist.
So what happens if your brain waves oscillate so fast and the distance between those waves gets so incredibly tight that it drops below that pixel size, below the Planck distance?
McDonald's report argues that when the oscillation of consciousness drops below that threshold, it clicks out of our space-time dimension entirely. It leaves the screen of our holographic reality.
Holy shit.
It enters a state of absolute infinity. It joins what the military report calls the absolute.
The absolute. This infinite energy field that is completely at rest, encompassing all dimensions, all time, and all space. It's wild that this deeply mystical, almost godlike concept was just sitting in a classified military file.
And what's crucial is that this isn't just Cold War paranoia. The science is still evolving right now.
Right. Let's bring this into today. Physics has advanced massively since 1983. Does any of this actually hold up? We have a brand new 2026 paper in our stack by John Surmont.
His paper on the oscillatory dynamics transductive bridging theorem, the ODTBT.
Yeah, we are going to need to translate that into garage talk. What is Surmont actually saying?
Fair enough. Surmont provides a modern mathematical framework for exactly what the CIA was poking at. He talks about something called the twist interface. Threshold waveform interaction for state transformation.
Still sounds like a textbook.
Think of it like the exact boiling point where water turns into steam. There is a violent boundary where the fundamental rules of reality suddenly shatter and change. Surmont proposes that at this boundary, this zero-depth vantage, two things collide: human consciousness and scalar field energy.
Wait, time out. What is scalar field energy? For those of us who don't have PhDs.
Good question. Think of normal energy like a wave crashing on a beach. It has a direction. It's moving from point A to point B. A scalar field is completely different. It has no direction.
Okay.
Imagine the entire ocean just sitting perfectly flat, perfectly still, possessing massive, terrifying potential energy everywhere all at once, without moving a single inch. That is a scalar field.
God, that's heavy.
Surmont's paper suggests that at this twist interface, our consciousness actually interacts with that infinite potential. It means we aren't just passively watching the universe. Our consciousness is an active, transductive mechanism that can shape reality.
That perfectly connects to the interview with Aaron Doughty. Doughty talks about reality transurfing and this concept of pendulums. Pendulums are essentially mass thought forms, collective energies created when millions of people focus their anxiety or obsession on the exact same thing.
Yes, these pendulums gain their own brutal momentum. And if you aren't aware of them, they will literally hijack your consciousness. Because if you are operating on a frequency of fear, Your internal hologram is tuning in to receive more fear from the universal hologram.
Like doom scrolling. If I sit in the dark and just scroll through apocalyptic news for 2 hours, I am actively feeding the pendulum. I'm tuning my 40,000-kilometer antenna straight to anxiety.
Exactly. And Daddy points out a crucial survival tactic. You can't fight a pendulum. Fighting it just feeds it more of your energy. The only way to win is through what he calls decreasing importance.
So how do you decrease importance?
You detach. Using your doom scrolling example, you don't aggressively argue with the news or get pissed off. You simply put the fucking phone down and drop your internal resistance. You mentally lower the stakes and consciously tune your frequency back to what you actually want to manifest.
But trying to manipulate reality or clicking out of your own mind sounds inherently dangerous. Which brings me to the Fancre Gateway Tapes subreddit. People are out there sharing their raw experiences from the front lines, and it is not all peace and light. One user documented that they got impatient, rushed through the tapes too quickly, and triggered a severe Kundalini awakening. What exactly does that mean?
In Eastern spiritual traditions, Kundalini is this dormant, highly concentrated, almost radioactive energy thought to sit at the base of the spine. When awakened properly over years, it's associated with profound enlightenment. But if it's forced up the spine too quickly, say, by rapidly hacking your brainwaves with audio tapes without any preparation, it can severely overload your central nervous system.
This user literally described their skull feeling like it cracked open, their body filled with raw electricity, and they entered a state of temporary psychosis. They had to be hospitalized because they completely lost touch with physical reality.
It is a stark, terrifying warning. You cannot just forcefully kick the left brain's door off its hinges and expect your psyche to survive the flood. The Monroe Institute explicitly warns about this. Even the CIA report states that if you try to radically depart from your current reality without grounding, you risk dislocating your existing reality sphere.
Drastic psychological consequences.
Exactly.
The Reddit user noted that grounding, spending time outside, eating heavy foods, and having a community to talk to without judgment was absolutely essential to not losing their mind. You have to anchor your antenna back into the dirt.
Which brings us right back to that ultimate cliffhanger we started with. Page 25 of the CIA report.
The missing page.
The page that vanished from 1983 until the Monroe Institute finally tracked it down and released it in 2021.
For almost 40 years, people thought the CIA was hiding some terrifying psychic weapon, or maybe hard proof of alien dimensions. So what did page 25 actually say?
What's truly poetic, and maybe a little chilling, is that the CIA wasn't hiding a weapon at all. They hit a profound philosophical conclusion. Page 25 explains why the universe exists.
It actually answers that.
It states that the absolute, that infinite scalar energy field at rest, projects the holographic universe for one specific, beautiful reason: to attain self-consciousness.
So it says that the absolute creates reality purely to experience itself, and it concludes that every single human being on Earth is part of a collective consciousness. We are all individual projections of the absolute, placed here in these meat suits to gather experiences, learn from one another, and eventually return that knowledge back to the source.
It was a message of ultimate peace, unity, and deep interconnectedness.
Hey, Commander. We didn't figure out how to mind read the Soviets, but we did discover that we are all one cosmic entity experiencing the illusion of separation. Yeah, I can totally see why the military might have conveniently lost that page. It completely destroys the whole concept of having enemies.
Exactly. It completely reframes the entire purpose of the Gateway process. It isn't an espionage tool for the Cold War. It's a mechanism for ultimate self-realization.
So bringing this all back to you, listening right now in your basement or your car or wherever you are, think about the CIA's analogy of the lamp versus the laser. Your mind in its natural monkey mind state is like a lamp. The energy is chaotic, messy, spilling out everywhere, lighting up the whole room, but without any real piercing power.
But with brutal focus, with synchronization, your mind can operate like a laser, a coherent, terrifying stream of energy capable of altering your reality.
How are you focusing your frequency today? What doom-scrolling pendulums do you need to detach from right now? What bullshit anxieties do you need to pack away in your own mental energy conversion box?
Because if the science in these documents holds true, your thoughts are not just isolated private events locked inside your skull. They are resonant frequencies, actively, violently interacting with the holographic universe.
And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. If the gateway process proves that this entire universe is just a holographic projection, a literal simulation created by the absolute just to examine and understand itself, then every deep dive you listen to, every single sound wave currently hitting your eardrums, is literally just the universe talking to itself.
You aren't just a person listening to a deep dive about audio frequencies.
You are an audio frequency, and perhaps the life you are living right now, the anxiety, the triumphs, the late-night thoughts, is just the absolute listening to its own ultimate gateway tape.
If you want to keep pushing the boundaries of what is real, hit subscribe. We've got darker dimensions to explore.
Until next time on Fleshology, keep your antenna tuned.